Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Surprise Witness. Now, I had taken a little break because I'm still battling with yo, am I crazy or like what's going on, right? But in the last few days, I literally got words from every direction saying, hey, if God's giving you a word and you need to share it and you don't share it, the blood is on your hands. And I was like, okay, I'd rather not disobey God, right? And I'd rather not be guilty of anything if I had prior knowledge of it and I didn't share it, right? So I have been getting one, God had to confront me about that, right? But two, like I've been getting a word on the story of Jonah, right? Specifically the gourd parable. And it's funny because growing up, like you only ever remember the part where Jonah is swallowed by the whale and then spit up and then, what's the rest of the story? I didn't remember it. And so I saw the word gourd, right? And it triggered this memory I had of like almost 2 years ago, right? God gave me this dream. And in the dream, I am walking in this, it looks like a ranch, right? Or like a farm. And I see God there. And, in my dreams, Jehovah and Jesus are like huge. They're like I have to look up at them, and even then I'm like a tiny little thing compared to like how big they are, right? And so in this dream I'm looking at him and he's telling me, Gabby, a famine is going to come. You need to get ready for the famine, right? You need to get ready for the drought. And I was like, oh, we're going to run out of food and water. And he's like, yes. And he told me, but I don't want you to worry because I'm going to tell you how to get water. And I was like, okay, how do I get water, right? And so he shows me these rows of cedar trees. And at the tops of the trees were these gourds, right? And in he didn't like say anything about it. Like it's more like the concept of it was just downloaded into me, and I just knew like, oh, if the gourd is on the top of the tree, then I could get water, right? Like the best place to get the water is from the top of the tree. But also, this was around the time that I believe it was Brother Troy Black had given a word on how if you tell the trees to release a stink, like it triggers the clouds to make rain. And so, like, that simultaneously was also like downloaded into me. So when I saw his video, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what God told me too, right? But it was just very strange, right? And I don't know if y'all know this, but trees actually do release a chemical that when it reaches the clouds, it stimulates the clouds to rain. But that's besides the point. This is about the gourds, right? Um, so he told me, the gourds are going to be on the closest to the toppest point of the tree, and that's how you're going to collect your water and everything's going to be okay. But just know that the drought is coming, right? And I was like, oh, okay. So that's how I'm going to get water. He's like, yes. I was like, okay, I'm not scared anymore, right? And I wake up. And at that time, I took that word of, there's going to be a drought, there's going to be a famine very literally. And I just started hoarding water and, buying dry goods and stuff. And it wasn't until later that I got revelation of like, oh, he meant a spiritual drought and famine, right? And as time has gone by, I never really understood what the purpose of that word was until recently when he gave me more enlightenment on it. And I know that's really crazy. Like, hey, let me have you wait 2 years before I tell you what I meant by that, right? But lately, if you're in this community and if you are like looking online at prophetic words that other people are sharing and stuff, you notice that the eclipses are gonna what is it there's going to be like points of convergence in the eclipses that have been happening in the last couple years. And something that's very interesting is they have like X marks the spot, right? Or that's like a very popular sound bit, which was a word I also got like around 2 years ago. But mind you, at that point, to me, it meant something else, but now I see its relevancy and I see the wisdom of God prophesying in that it is relevant to this too. So I was talking to God about these eclipse convergences, right? And I was asking him, like, what does this mean? It seems to be on everyone's mind, like on the occult and mystic side of YouTube, but also on like the prophetic um, followers of Christ side, right? And I asked the Lord for enlightenment on that. I was like, is there any truth to this? Or like, what is this? You have mentioned a few words about this to me, but you haven't really elaborated, right? And I received several words over the course of this week about it. And I wasn't really looking, like, I had heard sound bites of it, but I hadn't like even typed it into YouTube or anything like that. I hadn't tried to like look into whatever. But I got several words on it, but also a word I received in September kind of is attached to the gourd parable and also tied into this eclipse, right? I ended up finding this brother called God a Minute who shows, the maps, and he believes the rapture might be happening, but also that maybe it's just an event or whatever. And so I started looking at some of his info. And I had no idea, that a lot of these points or a lot of these points of convergence have towns that are biblically named, right? And I thought that was very interesting. And I believe one of these places is called Gourd, right? And so that made my like ears perk up, and I was like, what? What? This is crazy, right? And so I want to get into reading a word that the Lord gave me back in September. And this one he called the Valley of Mirage. Now, the way I talk to God is like, I'll talk to him, I'll have a conversation with him. Sometimes he answers very easily, very plainly, and then other times I get like a full word on it, right? And so this is what I wrote about this. I wrote, and so they passed through the waterless places, leaving one vessel to enter another. The demons that possess can smell as you step into the tracks they leave before you. And so you venture in the wilderness, armed only with a pocket knife in the fire of the Almighty. And as their eyes widen at the fire blazing in you, they shudder and you too gasp. For this is what one looks like. You exclaim as you look into the eyes of the fallen. I expected a beast with horns or wings and scales, and behold, he is a man just like me, nothing but flesh and tattered robes. His hands tremble as he pleads, for the demon knows what he does not, and as he knows, so too does the vessel. And so we part ways in the wilderness. How many of your ilk stand post as you take steps away from me? And how many report to the darkness that you fled before the shadow of the light? And so the shadow grows, cast out from where it once dwelled, and our brothers fly to us carrying bulbs of light. And we say, no, do not come here. It is forsaken. For my bulbs produce no light, for no lamb is found here in the realm of silence. And how then shall I be spared with no voice to hear? And you pull at the flesh of your face, and you gnaw at your tongue, and the sinew within you aches with anger and regret. And you sit alone in a home of strangers, and you ask what is to be done. And so once more you sit in the high tower, and so once more the tornado siren wails, and so once more the structure sways in the power of the whirlwind, and you tear at your skin bound to it. Cry out to the Lord, will you not hear me? Will you not send help? Have I angered you? And you ask once more, were you angry at the rivers, Lord? For the network carves the earth such as a branch of water carves the face of the mountain. Why can't I find it? And I have gourds of water of life tied to the tops of trees. And I scream out, why can't I find it? Why can't you help me? You know I am not strong. You know I cannot wage war. And this to me felt like a reflection of what I was going through. Around this time, I was really upset about a whole bunch of things that were happening in the world and in life. And I felt like Habakkuk, right? And I was like, I need to ask God, or I need to petition him about this. And so I had this conversation with him, right? And the answer that I feel I received was, and you said to me, is not all fair in love and war, and did you not prophesy your love would come? And I call out and see, he will answer. And is he not fearsome, as the high priest has said? And is he not here to wage war? And have you not been told to marry the one you would take to battle with you? For the home shall be split, for the plague shall descend, and the curse has fallen on both your houses. Now, let me just take a side note and say I don't know what this means. I don't know if this means Congress. I don't know if this is like the branch of government. I don't know if it's like home as a representation of family or like what, right? But it just, the emphasis was put on both of your houses. And I'm like, two houses of what? Like, I don't know. Renew the blade that was broken, for the Lamb shall return as the king. The bill of divorcement is issued. May the decree be heard all over the land. And I plunge the rod into the earth, so the boom will make every head turn. And I say once more, a curse on both your houses. The bill of divorcement has been issued. For no home divided shall stand. Surely the family will fall. Hear, hear, the bill of divorcement has been issued. And I tear myself from your flesh, and I leave you fleshy and exposed to the elements. Where no fig trees can hide you, and no breezes painless over your exposed flesh. And so the split earth deepens and rips across the land. And how can one know what is to happen? For such a thing has never been seen. A tear upon this earth, like an axe splits wood. I split the earth into two, and you will know I am the Lord when I make one equal two and two equal one. A plague on both your houses, for I did not come to bring peace but wage war. Now, part of the reason why I haven't been releasing words and stuff is because I do feel sometimes like I just go on a trip and I'm just coming up with nonsense because I'm also working on a comic book, right? I'm working on a graphic novel that I feel I've been in collaboration with the Lord about since I was a teenager. And a lot of the outline of my comic that I am finding out this year, right, is stuff that is happening in the world. Like there was a day where I was telling my friend, "Oh yeah, and in this part of my comic, this happens, this happens, this happens," and it literally happened in the Middle East, the way I described it happening in my comic. And so then I started, thinking like, "Hey, did God give me this knowledge in the sense of like, oh, this I'm going to tell you a story, and this story is something we're going to work on together, and you're going to make a comic book about this story." And it's something I've been working on, but was it also a roadmap or like a guidebook to these times? Like, God is very mysterious, God is very strategic, God is intelligent, and he just knows when to deliver everything that we need. And so the older I get, the more I'm seeing connections of when I was a child to this point in time. And I don't know if that's why God made me, because I'm supposed to make this comic or I'm supposed to talk about it and I'm supposed to share things with people. I really don't know. What I do know is that God told me that I am in my raison d'etre point of my life, right? I don't even know French, right? I had to Google this. And what this means is the reason for one's entire existence. And like I said, I don't want to share this kind of stuff because on one hand, you tell people, "Oh yeah, like I got this word," and they look at you like you're crazy. You're a crazy person. You don't know what's going on. But then things that you shouldn't, or you say stuff that's weird that ends up happening, and then you're like, "What the heck is going on?" Right? But like I said, God was confronting me about this and was like, if I tell you to warn people and you're not warning anyone, that's a problem. And that's a problem that you will be responsible answering to me for. And so I don't want to upset God. And I'm just trying to do what he put me on here to do, I guess. So this gourd thing, I went back to this poem, right? After I had seen that this brother posted this map and gourd was one of the places that it would be, I guess, intersecting or coming into view of again. And I read the poem, right? The Lord's response. I reread the parable of Jonah, right? And in this parable, Jonah has been, prophesying that all these destructive things are going to come. And he assumes that these places are going to be destroyed because, like, hey, they're ripe for destruction. I'm going to prophesy this, whatever. Uh, he gets swallowed up by a whale, spit out. He tells them those things. But Jonah had this hatred towards this place, right? And he had this like sense of, I don't know what you would call it, righteousness, or like, hey, it deserves to be destroyed. It should be destroyed. Because if it's not destroyed, then it will continue to be um, an oppressive force, right, to God's kingdom. And, he goes, he sits under a tree, and God makes this tree like, um, he makes it grow supernaturally, right? And the gourd comes out and it gives him shade and he's able to rest. But overnight, like, or in a day, this worm comes and destroys the gourd, and then he's back to being uncomfortable and stuff. And, Jonah gets mad about it. He talks to God about it. And God is like, what reason do you have to be mad? Like, did you do anything um, to the betterment of the gourd that I gave you in the short time that you had it? You did nothing. And the parable was that there were millions of people in this place that was set for destruction, right? But God understood the end goal of like, yeah, it's ripe for destruction, but there are people there that repented, and there are still a lot of people there that are his, and he's not going to destroy it because of that. And so part of that, especially when we combine it with the reference to Habakkuk, right, is we always assume, and like, this is not me talking smack about, prophetic voices that are on here, or pastors or whatever, that say that America is Babylon and due for destruction. But we always say that, we always claim to think that we know God's wisdom, right? But at the end of the day, his people are here. They do have the capability of repentance. And God does supernatural things and saves his people in supernatural, mysterious ways. So who are we to claim that we have an understanding of whether destruction will fall upon us or not? And that's something too that I feel like God needed to confront me about too, because I have been in a very negative mindset, and I'm like, oh, God, we can't do this without you. It's terrible here. Oh my gosh. Like, it's just a matter of time before someone drops bombs on us, whatever, whatever. But lately he's been telling me, like, well, what if it doesn't have to be that way? What if enough of my people can see the signs of the times and just know that it's time to repent because judgment is upon them? And then it goes back to, this bill of divorcement being issued to a bride that isn't ready, that is disobedient. A lot of people have made references to the fact that, the A that is the intersecting lines of the eclipses is like a judgment mark, like adulterous bride, that's how God sees us. And it's like, are we repenting and letting God know that, we can be saved, we can redeem ourselves, and that we do love him, and that we want to make more of an effort to do that? Something that's very interesting is, about a week ago, right, I got another word. And this one is interesting as well. So I was just hanging out one morning, and then, God just started showing me these images. I wrote, someone will be receiving a bouquet soon. Jehovah says this has two meanings. One is a symbol or gesture of love. The other is a symbol of mourning, passing of a king, question mark, who knows. He is showing me the times I gave someone flowers due to a loss. Then he shows me a handsome young suitor giving me a large bouquet, a large variety of flowers. I ask him, what is this? Why am I receiving this? This is a mystery. I'm receiving too many presents lately, and this is true. Like, a lot of my friends have just been giving me stuff. Like, God is providing for me right now, and it's kind of freaking me out. And I don't know why. It's too much stuff. Like, I really don't understand why people are just giving me stuff right now. So I tell Jehovah this, and he's just silent. He doesn't answer me about this. And I say, why do you keep showing me paintings of fields and houses and farms? And in this vision, I see these frames of oil paintings of fields, houses, and farms, right? But I don't really know what they mean. And I see an older man, and he has a whole bunch of work files. And then separate of him, I see a baseball uniform. And then I hear God's voice and he says, when was the last time they won a World Series? I don't know what this is in reference of. And I asked him too, I was like, I don't know a thing about sports. I don't know why you're talking about sports. Like, I don't know what that means. And then he says, the light of 1,000 suns and a rain of paper cranes. And then all is gone and I can't hear him anymore. Now, when he said the light of 1,000 suns and a rain of paper cranes, I knew that this was a reference to this novel called The Year of the Boar and Jackie Robinson. And that book is about a little girl who, comes to America and is trying to assimilate. She's from China. Or no, she's from Japan. And in the story, she she reflects on having seen the atomic bombs and how she describes it as it was the light of 1,000 suns, right? And in the dream, she, I don't know if it was her or it was another congruent story that I heard around that time, but there was this little girl. I think this is a separate story, but there was a paper crane motif in that story as well. But the paper cranes reference was about this girl who I believe had leukemia. I don't know if it's that story or if it's another one. I might be getting them confused, to be honest, or maybe they're the same story. I don't know. But there was this little girl that had leukemia, and she believed that if she folded 1,000 paper cranes, she would be able to get a miracle, and she would be, cancer free. Um, so something I want to look into is the symbolism of paper cranes. It symbolizes honor, good fortune, loyalty, and longevity. Anyone with the patience and commitment to fold 1,000 origami cranes would be given good fortune and granted a wish. Okay. And so when he made this reference of the light of 1,000 suns and the paper cranes, I knew what it was. One was a bomb, another one was a wish. Now, this could be metaphorical, this doesn't have to be literal. Um, but here's what's even crazier. This was before I found that brother that was posting the maps of the eclipses. The brother, his show is called Got a Minute on YouTube. This was before I had found him. Okay, this was at this time I am just musing on some of the things that God has told me, but I had not discovered that brother who had made the maps. Right? Tell me why. I got that download, and I think it was like a day or two later. I'm browsing on YouTube, and all of a sudden I see what had he titled it? Let me go look for it. I want to look. Here he is, and he's doing like a recap. But let me show you what he called one of these maps that he made, because it just blew my mind. Like God is amazing. He works in mysterious ways, but it's like he was trying to tell me, like, hey, this is what this means. What do you call it? Where is it? 20 pins. Okay. So he does this thing where he pins the locations of this eclipse, the what is it called? What is it called? Where the eclipse can be seen from, right? And he puts little pins on them. And so what he did was this he called this arrangement of pins a flower bouquet. He called it a flower bouquet because of how it looked with all the little pins and the different colors. And I can't find the video right now, but he had a video where he like had that in the title. It blew me away. I had no idea what to think. Like, I just was like, okay, I definitely have to release this word. Like, God wants me to tell people, hey, there's either going to be something good or bad that's going to happen. And mind you, That is so broad, right? Like, how can you possibly expect to get any brownie points or whatever from saying, hey, it's either going to be a bomb or it's going to be a wonderful thing? But I find it interesting that there are two intersecting points. And in his videos, let me see if I could find, he has all these pins in this area, right? And then a few over here. Now, the fact that the Lord called my first poem of judgment the Valley of Mirage, I decided to look for the valleys in the United States. And behold, these valleys are also around these points of intersection, right? Mind you, many more valleys over here along this point, but I found it very interesting that they also happen to coincide into these 2 points and then a little bit up here at the top. Well, a lot over here at the top, right? But I don't know if I don't know where I'm at in this process, right, of discovery yet. I don't know if that means anything. Like, why did he call it the Valley of Mirage? Why did he say that war was going? Why is he saying that, those houses will be split when, it's a valley, they're towns? It could either be a bomb dropping or it could be a wish being granted. Like, this is very, very crazy. And what's crazier is, a lot of people have been saying that God's been telling them to move, and they happen to move in one of these like visibility lines. Like, what is happening? Do we need to see it that night? Like, what's going to happen? I don't know. All I wanted to say was, uh, oh, and another note. I thought it was so weird that also the Jackie Robinson statue had gotten vandalized like a week ago. And so like it was like that day that I had gotten that word. It was like I woke up and it was like Jackie Robinson statue vandalized, blah blah. And I was like, what? That's so random. Like, who cares, right? But why is that happening? What does that mean? I had seen the baseball uniform. I had heard the word of when was the last time they won a World Series. Like, and mind you, I am no sports fan, so I don't know when, like, what happened with that. Hang on, let me see. Jackie Robinson team, Brooklyn Dodgers. When did Brooklyn Daw oh obviously can't spell Dodgers win World Series? 1955. The dates were between September 28th to October 4th, which is weird. Wait, when did they win the World Series? World Series championships: 2020, 1988, 1981, 1965, 1963, 1959, 1955. I really don't. I really don't know what that means. If anyone has any ideas, you're more than welcome to share. But I just wanted to share this word. Um, I am considering it a word on war because it does include like a possible bomb dropping. So I'm going to title it A Word on War, Eclipse. And if you guys have any ideas of what it means, let me know in the comments below. Thanks.